Welcome to the Power Factor Show. Episode 147. Sponsored by Rainier Ballistics, Hodgdon Powders, and JPL Precision.
Hi, I'm Rick, and we're going to talk a little bit about lubing your handgun. You've got the two issues of what do I lube it with and where do I lube it. Really, I think the latter is the more important. A lot of people swear by whatever lube it is they're using, whether it's motor oil, CLP, special secret, expensive gun lubrication. But I think the important thing is using enough of it and putting it in the right place. So here's a kind of a standard old school pistol. You might have some different requirements depending on whether you're using a steel frame pistol, an alloy framed pistol, or a polymer pistol, but even a frame material, regardless of what it is, you'll probably have a steel slide and very probably have steel inserts in your frame if it's a plastic frame gun like a Glock or an M&P or something. So you're still going to have steel on steel where the slide interacts with the frame, and then also at the end of the barrel, and probably also here on top of the ejection port. So I'm just going to go through the areas that I lube on my 1911, and generally I will lube it prior to each shooting session. So if I've been to the range, I'll wipe it all off, I'll lock the slide back, and I'll clean everything that I can reach. And so that means I'll wipe off the muzzle end of the barrel and the guide rod. I'll get in here with a toothbrush, especially on the breech face around the extractor hook, and I'll just get everything that I can reach, and then I'll wipe it down and put it away. And then when I'm going to take it to the range the next time, I'll lube it. Usually not at the range, but maybe the night before or the morning before, so that the oil has a little bit of a chance to distribute itself through the gun. But I'll just show you the points that I lube. I normally use, this isn't the, this is UL, that's what I use. It's a secret code. No, actually it's Wilson Ultima Lube. It's a liquid, just a plain liquid oil. From Wilson Combat. I've been using it for many years. It used to come anyway in 3 different forms. They have the regular oil, a thicker oil, and then a grease. And I use the thin oil, thinnish oil, and the grease on occasion. But this is my lube. You can get these little needle applicators from Brownells, and I'm sure you could probably get them at the hardware store or whatever. But then whatever lube you buy, you can always put it in the quantity that you need it. I carry one of these around in my range bag, and then I also have one at my bench at home. So when I'm cleaning, it's nice for applicating whatever it is you want to applicate, whether it's cleaner or solvent, or but you can buy in large quantities. For instance, let's say a lot of people I know use Mobil 1 motor oil. You can buy a quart of oil for $5 or $6 and then just use it, 25 cents at a time. So the areas that I like to lube are the frame and slide rails. Now you can see here's the slide rail where it interacts with the frame on both sides. And so I like to put a drop on both the slide and the groove on the slide, and then also the raised area where that gets buried down inside the frame. So you've got the kind of the inner surface and the outer surface. So I put a drop on each side, so that's 2 drops. Then I put a drop, at least 1, on the muzzle. 2 is good, 1 on the top, 1 at the bottom. I put it back far enough from the edge so that when the slide comes forward, it doesn't just push it all off the end of the muzzle. You want to be able to distribute it on the barrel. Maybe a small drop on the guide rod, because the recoil spring plug is bearing on that. So maybe 1 drop there, maybe 1 on the other side. You want to be, you don't want to soak it, but you want there to be enough lube. And if there is an excess, when you rack the slide back and forth, generally the closeness of the fit will kind of push the excess off, and then you can just wipe it off with a paper towel or something. Now on a 1911 like this, where you've got the steel slide can rub fairly heavily on the top of the barrel. And so I always like to put at least one drop right here at the front of the ejection port and let that kind of distribute on that first locking lug. And so that will, when you rack the slide again to distribute the oil, that'll put a thin coating of oil on the barrel hood, as you can see here as I let it go. Now that oil that I put at the front of the ejection port is going to be distributed on the slide. Now I'll just run it back and forth a few times like this. Now if I'm not going to shoot the gun, like I said, I'd like to do this the night before, and generally what I'll do is I'll just sit the gun like this on the bench, leaning against something, and that way gravity will cause the oil to kind of flow where it's going to go, it needs to go anyway. But if I need to kind of lube it and go right away, just racking the gun like this distributes the oil. And then you can see there's already some of the excess has kind of worked its way out of the slide and frame grooves, and there's probably, as you can see here, a drop forming at the front of the bushing. So that's just excess. You can wipe it off. You should wipe it off. I've seen people shooting and seen the oil spraying off the gun. And if you're shooting, let's say, an open gun, it could get on the lens of your scope. Or if you're wearing just regular shooting glasses, when the slide starts cycling, it's throwing little bits of oil onto your glasses. So you definitely do want to wipe off that excess stuff. But you don't, I would say, don't be too sparing when you apply it. If you waste 2 drops that you have to wipe off because it's oozed out, you're probably better off than putting on too little in the interest of trying to save a drop here and there. So that's your basic lubing on essentially the exterior of the gun. I'd recommend you do that before any shooting, especially if you're going to shoot a match, shoot a couple hundred rounds. You definitely want fresh lube on there. And then I also recommend re-lubing it every time you go to the range.
Hi, I'm John. He's Steve. We're back again. We're going to talk a little bit about gun fitting and
shotgun fitting.
Shotgun fitting, that is. You hear people asking, well, what is gun fit? Why do I want to have a gun fit to me? What is that going to do for me? Shotgun is, as you know, doesn't have real sights on it. And where you mount the gun and then look down the barrel, you want, when the gun comes up, to automatically be looking down the barrel. Right. So that's one part of fit.
Because your eye is effectively the rear sight of the shotgun.
And then hopefully the shot will go where you're looking, which is at the target, or where it needs to be in relation to the target to break the target. That's only part of it. Other parts of gun fit get into dimensions of the stock. One of them is length of pull, and a lot of guys will, you know, do this and say, yeah, that's right, and that doesn't tell you anything.
No.
The stock dimensions that are real important is drop at the comb, which is off of the rib. How far does this drop? And then drop at the heel. Mm-hmm. There's other dimensions like cast on or cast off. So if a straight line down the barrels, this stock is going over that way a little bit, and for a right-handed shooter, that's cast off. And you can't see it real good on this, but on Steve's gun you can. There's also toe in, toe out, which is the bottom. So the stock itself, is it like that? Is it like that? And if those adjustments or dimensions are off for you, and the last one is pitch. Pitch angle.
And pitch is really important because if you get the pitch wrong on a gun, it can turn a gun into a face slapper, is a lot of times what it's referred to as.
And pitch is the angle, again, from the top of the barrels or the rib to the buttstock, and is it like that or is it like that, and how does it fit on your chest?
And most guns have, what, 4 to 5 degrees of what it's technically negative pitch.
There's lots of discussion
and the way that it's easy to measure, I mean, you take the gun and you stick it down against the ground, go up against a wall here, and obviously it's going to be tilting back from the wall this direction. You measure the angle there, or you can do a trig, which is the easiest way to do it.
And figure it out. Or go to an honest-to-God stock fitter with a tri-gun who will set it up, have you shoot it, make some adjustments to it, have you shoot it some more, and then give you what the dimensions are that you need for your gun. So short of doing that, there are some devices out that you can put on your gun Some guns come equipped with them. One of them would be an adjustable comb, where this is a solid comb gun, but there'd be a cut in it, and the comb would be adjustable for height, as well as either moving to the right or moving to the left.
Right. And then some guns you'll also see in stocks have what's called referred to as a parallel comb, where instead of having the drop at the comb and the drop at the heel, it's effectively flat all the way across there.
A lot of trap guns are set up that way.
Or like Monte Carlo stocks and things of that nature. Yeah.
So another thing you're going to see a lot of is what they call a stock adjuster. This one is a Jones adjuster, and it lets you change the toe angle on the back of the gun as well as the height. So you can adjust it up or down and for angle. What that does, it'll let you pick the gun up, the whole gun, not just the comb, so you get the whole gun up higher. People with long necks get a lot out of that. It'll also help you get into a more upright head position with your eyes level rather than being cranked over.
Right. And a lot of women benefit from the adjustable butt pad there, and then they can cant it off to the side for obvious reasons. And I know
which reasons?
Obvious reasons. And they also say that a lot of muscular guys also have the same issue with large pectoral muscles. Will benefit from something like that too.
If you shoot and you get stung, you get a bruise, you get slapped, you go home with a red spot on your cheek, your gun does not fit you.
Right.
If you're happy with that, then you don't need to do anything about it. But if not, there's a lot of things that you can do to eliminate that and get the gun so it doesn't kick you nearly as hard. If it fits, it's not going to kick you nearly as hard.
Yeah, it's I think one of the main things that when people start doing shotgun shooting sports and they get kicked by the gun, it's like, oh, I hate this. You know, this hurts to shoot. Well, it's not fun to shoot when you're hurting, but a lot of that has to do with just shotgun fit in general.
Yes.
If the gun does not fit, it's going to beat you up, and it's really important to go out and get the gun fit. Now, they recommend a lot of times that people who are just starting shooting out, obviously they're, you know, you can wrap yourself to a certain degree around the gun and get it to work. You want to get the fundamentals down first and work on that before you get a shotgun, the actual gun fit to you. And I think I've heard before they say you want to shoot for about a year or so before you actually go out and look and see about getting the gun fit to you.
If you don't beat yourself up
in the meantime, so, you know, keep that in mind, because if you have poor fundamentals and you go out and you get a shotgun fit done, and then you start changing your technique or your fundamentals, and the gun all of a sudden does not fit you anymore because you've learned the right way, but unfortunately your gun was tuned for you when you were shooting the wrong way.
There's an excellent resource available it's a book called The Stock Fitter's Bible, written by a fellow by the name of Roland Oswald. And I don't know him from anybody. He does post on Trap Shooters, and he does post on Shotgun World. His book is available through Amazon and other places. Plus, there's a free copy of it on, I think it's on Shotgun World. It's been updated one time. The little bits and pieces that I've read of it, I think it's pretty impressive. It'll tell you everything that you need to know, or at least be aware of, on fit and how that's going to impact you and what you can do to correct it, assuming you've got the correct form to start with.
Right, and that's the key thing. I think they say that a lot of the shotguns that come out of the factory, they say they're the typical person they're aimed at is 165 pounds, 5'9".
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, so if you're 165 pounds and 5'9",
it might fit. Yeah, with a neck so long and arms so long.
Right. So that's one of the problems that I'm not going to say I suffer from, but having a longer neck, I have to deal with that. And when I mount, John refers to as this is crawling the stock, but I'll have my head down.
Way out on it.
Yeah. It's not exactly way out on it, but it's not upright.
But if you had an adjuster on it, theoretically, you could pick the whole gun up where you wouldn't be out on it, but you'd be more upright with it. And that might help your neck, too.
Well, that's a different issue. The other thing they say is that when you do mount the gun, and this kind of varies, but it's a general rule of thumb, is that you want to stick about have 2 to 3 fingers between your nose,
like 1.5 to 2 inches,
right?
Yeah.
Your nose and your thumb, because if we were talking before about length of pull, if the length of pull is too short, you're going to be hitting your nose with your hand when you fire. Now I can't really simulate that, but if I was way up like this, I'd be getting bashed like this when I shoot. So a normal mount for me is right about here. So why don't you go stick 2 fingers up there and see where you're at?
I don't want to get that close.
Okay, well it's roughly
it's the cold
2
season.
fingers. The problem is that if the gun is too long for you, then it's kind of like a stick out there waving around. So you'd be like back like this, and you don't have a whole lot of control over the gun. It's just kind of like it feels like an appendage sticking out here that you don't have a whole lot of control of. So that's why you kind of want to, snuggle up to the gun, so to speak, to make sure that you're into it, but not really too far into it where you're hitting your nose on your hand. And in my case, I think mine fits just about right for what it's doing. So I got lucky from that aspect. I'm 6'1" and 170, so
you're outside the envelope.
Yeah, just slightly outside the envelope. And a lot of guns will come with different size butt pads also to increase or decrease.
The Beretta sporting guns come with 2 different lengths.
Right. And a lot of times if it's too long, you can get it cut. You can change the pitch angle on the gun too when you're getting it cut, or you can put on something like this.
Which does not change the pitch angle unless you have it cut.
Right.
I have a 686 and I just got a 692. And I had the 686 cut and a kick ease pad put on it, which changed the stock dimensions for me to what feels comfortable to me. 692 didn't feel right to me. And the 692 has an adjustable trigger on it. So length of pull is what? From the middle of the pad to the middle of the trigger, whatever that is.
Right.
Well, I can move the trigger any place, so that's meaningless. So to make the new gun feel like my old gun, what I did is measure the stock from the head of the stock to the back of the wood, and had my new gun cut to that same dimension, and then had another kick ease pad fit to it that's just a little bit longer, because we wound up taking a 1/2 inch off the overall length of the wood.
Right.
And that brought the length of it back to where I want it. Both of my guns feel exactly the same to me when I pick them up now. And that's what I was after.
Right.
So, you got to make it fit you so you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think the moral of the story is make sure you do get it fit, because if you are having, face slap or getting beat up or whatever, a lot of that may have to do with fundamentals. It may have to do with fit. You may also want to, consult somebody who really knows what they're doing, who can look at you mounting the gun, and they can probably identify a lot of this really quick. But again, in shotgunning, your eye is the rear sight, and if your eye is off and not lined up correctly down the barrel, then that just creates a multitude of problems. It needs to be down the barrel, left and right, and up and down in both planes. So
this will sit up really nice. So if you're shooting a gun, and pretend this wasn't flopping around.
Can I use mine?
And it fits you, but it's way out here. It doesn't fit you.
No.
It needs to be back in against you, like Steve says. The couple of fingers. I don't know. It's probably about like that for me. This is different than my gun. And if you're having to reach that far, it's not going to work for you over time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that created questions or answered questions for you, but that's a little bit about gun fit. If you can, take a look at Roland's book. It'll teach you a lot about what's going on with guns, gun fit. And if you really need help, find a professional fitter.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because they will be able to identify a lot of issues really quick, and a lot of them have, like you said, tri-guns where they can just tweak literally everything. And
they'll have you shoot it and then tweak it and shoot it again.
Right.
So that's all for this time.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Rick. We're going to talk a little bit about dry fire practice. In the episode that we did sometime back on dry fire, Steve and I talked about using miniaturized targets to help with your dry fire. For instance, if you're practicing for a course of fire like an El Presidente that's shot at 10 yards, you could use 1/3 size targets set at 10 feet and do most of your practicing on sub-sized targets. Now Steve, in his house, he can set up targets in his living room stand in his kitchen and he's just about 10 yards away. So he will actually set up full-size targets. Now I'm here in my garage where I certainly don't have 30 or 40 feet of space. I've got about 15 to 20 feet of space. And so I like these 1/3 caliber, 1/3 size targets. And I just cut these out of plain cardboard. I mean, it's the same material that the actual targets are cut out of, but it's just a flat, smooth piece of cardboard. And if I wanted multiple sizes, I'd have to do a lot of measuring and cutting and whatnot. So somebody has taken this to the next level, as they say. And this is a miniaturized target that you can use for dry fire practice. This is from ShotMaster. They were a sponsor of the recent Washington State IDPA Championship, and it's a pretty cool invention. As you can see, it's not just the dimensions and shape of the target, but it's also got the scoring zones milled into it. This was a little commemorative piece that was given to all the safety officers who worked at the state championship. But the standard ones have the scoring zones on the front, and they come in multiple sizes so that you can get quite an array of stuff set up, even in very limited space. So for instance, if I wanted to practice on a stage, I had a stage design and some of the targets were at, say, 15 feet, and some of the targets were at 50 feet or even 75 feet. I could set these two targets side by side and have a reasonable facsimile of what that array looked like, and it wouldn't need much room at all. And so you can buy sets of these in different sizes, use them in different combinations to simulate targets at different distances, and they're pretty cool. Obviously I'd thought of making a reduced size target, I'm sure lots of people have, but this is a pretty cool advanced form. And they do come pretty large. I mean, you can use this. This could simulate a target, that's 10 feet away and put it 2 feet away. I could put it on the bench here and simulate a target that's close, and put other size targets right next to it to get quite a bit of simulated difference in target distance. So give ShotMaster a call. We'll put their contact information on the screen if you think it's cool, and it will certainly help your dry fire practice.